Hey y'all, my name is Jake, and I wanted to show you a quick way to add some punch and clarity to your drum mix with a little something called parallel compression. Now, you might be wondering, what is parallel compression? How is it different from regular compression? Well, basically, you are using a compressor to reduce the dynamic range of a track as you usually would in order to bring up the softest elements of your track while keeping the loudest elements of the track intact. So by doing that, your overall drum group, you can achieve a certain loudness that just wasn't there before. So mixing the compressed signal with your uncompressed signal on your drums will give you a lot more punch and clarity than you had before. And it's really going to push your drum mix to the forefront of the overall mix. Basically, how hard you decide to push the compressor in terms of the threshold is really up to you. It depends on the energy of the song. If it requires more of a hard-hitting, squash, pumping, breathing kind of sound with the drums, you can do that. Otherwise, for the softer kind of stuff, it's better to go a little subtle and just to give your drums a little extra pop. Either way you decide to do it, it's very easy to set up in Logic Pro. That's what I'm going to be using. You can use any other DAW you have, Ableton, Cubase, Pro Tools, any of that. It all kind of operates the same. But I'm going to show you that right now. All right, so we got Logic opened up here. As you can see, I have my have a drum kit I recorded recently for a song. It has kick, snare, hi-hat, 2 overheads, rack tom, floor tom. Here's the mixer view for it. So just by themselves, and I have them all going into a bus for the drums right here, and I've turned off the effects I put just to kind of make things easier to explain. But these are the drums just by themselves. They haven't been, besides a little bit of outboard EQ and compression I did earlier, there's really nothing going on plugin wise. So I'm just going to pause that. So to set up your parallel compression, first thing you're going to want to do is go up to the first empty send after you've selected all your drum tracks. You're going to want to go up there, go down to bus, choose any bus you want for it. 10, that's a nice number. Let's go with that. And over here, you can see a new bus has been created, a new aux track called bus 10. And let's go ahead and call that drum comp, or whatever you want to call it. Parallel compression, whatever's easier for you. First thing, we're going to select your compressor plugin. I personally really like using, actually first we're going to make the bus stereo by clicking on this little button. And that basically just goes back and forth between mono and stereo. But we want stereo this time. So you're going to choose your plugin. I like the SSL comp by Waves. Based off of a really classic solid state Logic compressor that was in a lot of their boards back in the day and still is. But I just really like it because it's designed for a stereo mix, a stereo bus. So it works really well with a lot of groups of instruments, case in point, drum kit. A lot of grouped elements, so it kind of glues it all together. So that's what I'm going to be using. So once you have your plugin, we're going to select all your drums, and we're going to want to bring your send of all of them up to unity, which is 0. Another easy way, if we bring it all down, hold your Option key on the Mac and just click, and all of them go up to 0. It's a nice little shortcut. So then what we're going to do, we are going to, let's go ahead and solo the drum comp bus. So basically what's happening is once we had it all set to unity for your send, all the drums are feeding into the bus equally. So basically sounds like it did before because there's nothing happening yet in the compressor. What we're going to do, first if you option click the gain makeup, brings it down to 0. I don't know why that's the default for this, to have a little up there, but we're going to keep it at 0. First things first, for the attack and release settings, for the drums, you're going to want to keep a lot of that initial hit. And by doing that, let's see, we're going to select a very slow attack. So in this particular compressor, all the way to the right, 30 milliseconds. It's as slow as it gets for this compressor. This would obviously be very a fast setting, but we don't want that because we want some of the drums to just kind of sneak in, you know, before the compressors really starts to hammer it down. Because we like to preserve our drum transients. They sound good. And for the release settings, we are going to bring it down to 0.1 seconds. And so that'll actually be the fastest setting for the release. So slow attack, fast release. So basically we set a fast release so that the compressor, once it's compressing, can come back up to 0. And allow for the next hit, especially if you're hitting, you know, drums. There's so many successions. You got 16 notes. So basically that can come up super quick, so you're ready to compress the next one. That way it doesn't linger too much, so you're not just compressing way too much than you want to. For the ratio, we're going to do 4-to-1 ratio, which is a pretty common ratio for any drums, any sort of slightly aggressive sounds, active sounds. We're going to keep that at 4. So why don't we go ahead and play a little bit of this. So we got the drums going. What you're going to want to do is bring the threshold down slowly until stuff starts happening. So you can see right now, you're hearing a lot more compressed version of the original drum recording. And where you want to kind of put this is up to you. I personally like to smash the original recording until it hits kind of -8. I feel like that's always kind of a good place for me to hit personally. You can hear it really pumping, really working right now. So that's a pretty good setting. Why don't we close out of that? And now we're going to blend in the compressed signal of your drums with the original uncompressed versions, which are still intact because we just made a send, basically duplicated the signal. So what we're going to do is bring down the fader of the drum comp bus. Play the song. And it does help if we're hearing other elements of the song too. Like I have bass, Wurlitzer on there, so you can kind of hear what it sounds like when you bring in the compressor with everything there. So we're gonna just bring up the drum compressor, and we're just gonna listen for a difference in the sound. All right, so already we're hearing a lot more punch coming out. You hear that sort of extra oomph to the drums. So it's muted. That's with it in there. So you only really have that much compression going on, or you're only going to keep it that loud, because you don't want it to be too overpowering. Where you set it is wherever you want. You know, you can play around, experiment with the settings. You can have it really loud. It starts to sound a little unnatural when you have it that loud to my ears. I like to keep it around -10 is pretty good. So it just gives a little power, you know. Sometimes that's all you need just to get it. stick out a little bit more. And sometimes when you're doing it, if one of the drums, for example the hi-hat, maybe you think it's a little too loud, once you send it through the compressor, so what you can do is just maybe, so like just the hi-hat, you bring that down a little bit. The hi-hat doesn't stick out so much, but the kick and snare and overheads are the same. So that way you're really only giving the punch to things you want to be punchy. If you don't want the hi-hat to stick out as much, just kind of drop it off a little bit. Anyway, that's how I use parallel compression to add some punch to the drums. That's the way I personally set it up. If you have other ways of doing it, feel free to comment below. And if you like the video, maybe click the little like button right there. Even subscribe to my channel if you want. I'm going to have more audio production tips very soon. So thanks for watching. I'll see you later.